Hey guys, welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel where we cover all things crypto from the perspective of a miner. So today's video, we're going to take kind of a little deep dive into the Antminer K7. We're going to look at what the profitability is going to be like, and just as a clue, it's not going to be what's currently on asicminer value. It's going to be drastically different. We're going to go into the reasoning why and why you got to see this video if you're thinking about buying one, just so you can get some ideas as to what your real profitability is going to be like. So we're going to go into it. We're going to compare it to the competition, see what it looks like, and see what the best case scenario looks like, which, just as a heads up, isn't looking too great. So if it sounds interesting, guys, let's stay tuned. So let's get right to it. So we'll go over the K7 real quick. So in case you're unfamiliar, it's coming from bitmain, obviously the big dog. So we'll go over the stats real quick. 63.5 terahash, 3080 watts. Okay, so that's currently what it's going to be at. Let's compare it to the previous big dog, which was from Goldshell. It was the CK6. Okay, this guy's coming in at 19.3 terahash at 3300 watts. So right off the bat, we can see similar wattage, right? This guy's actually more, unfortunately. The biggest difference is the hash rate. Okay, 19.3, it's less than a third, right? So 19.3 compared to the 63.5 from bitmain. Huge difference at even less wattage. Crazy efficiency gain. Okay, this is why it's such a big deal. That's why it's getting so much attention right now. So now let's compare it to what's going to be the number 2 in line, and this is supposedly competing with it as it's just releasing now. It's shipping now, actually. This is from IB Link. This is the BM-N3, and theirs is coming in at 3300 watts, so power-wise about the same as the Goldshell, which again is still more than the bitmain miner, about 10% more, but this guy's 25 terahash. So it's a little bit better from comparing it to the Goldshell. It's about 1.5x, so a little bit better there, but still nowhere near the K7. Okay, it's still less than half, which is a significant difference, especially considering that this is the current gen, right? Nowhere near the K7. Okay, and this is why, again, these two miners from bitmain are getting so much attention, is just because it's such a big leap in efficiency. Okay, so now let's look at profitability. Okay, so we can see here the K7 will make about $25.53. Okay, so most people tend to see this and they start trying to make, their ROI calculations based off of this. It's not going to work that way. Okay, the reason being is that these altcoin miners, their network is just not as mature as Bitcoin or even like Doge with the L7s. These are fairly new, and their network, their hashing network, is going to get reset essentially. Okay, so if you're the one guy, you're the first guy who gets your K7, you plug it in, this is what you're going to be making with the current difficulty rate, right? Not too bad looking. The problem is that that's not going to be the case once everybody gets their shipment in. Okay, it's going to change pretty drastically because, again, the whole network is going to get reset essentially. This is going to be a whole new world essentially for them. Same with Kadena. We talked about it with the Kadena miner. Similar situation here. Okay, now let's look at, so that one actually didn't have the N3 listed. If we go on asicminer value though, it does have it listed so we can compare. Again, this is at a 10-cent kilowatt hour, but we can see the huge difference here, right? The profitability on the K7 is going to be 25 bucks compared to the $5 a day here. And again, it's because of the efficiency difference. Okay, it's just such a drastic difference that this is what it is, and this is why that K7 is getting so much attention. Okay, we can see it compared to everything else. The CK6 is at a paltry $2. The CK6SC, which is an even crappier version, is at 90 cents. Okay, and anything below that is not even worth looking at. Okay, we're not even going to reference it. And again, just to double check, we put it in another calculator just to verify, right? And we were getting similar numbers. Profit here at 10 kilowatt hours, 26, so pretty close. And then same thing here with the N3, about $6. So it's within that, 10-15% range, which is about what it's going to be. So now let's look at Nervos' price. Okay, super low right now. Okay, this is the all-time chart. It's currently at 0.002286. Which is currently at an all-time low, right? This thing is the lowest it has ever been. Pretty crazy stat, even going all the way back to the beginnings, right? We can see here there was a dip down to 0.0028, and then go a little bit farther back, and it's about the same range, right? But it's currently at essentially the lowest it's ever been, which is pretty crazy. So now let's look at what we really want to look at here. So this is where things change as far as comparison goes with Kadena, with the KA3 and the K7. With Kadena, their hash rate has just been up and to the right. It's been a beautiful chart if you're if you're looking at it, because it's just been going up. It's been consistently going up. Versus with Nervos, and it's because of how efficient these other miners are, and because, you know, their network is still in its infancy, essentially, we can see it going down. Okay, it's gone down to like essentially half of what it was. Okay, we look back in April, we're about 140 petahash, and as a matter of fact, it's less than half. We're currently at 61.3 petahash. So big significant difference, and it's because it's just the lack of miners, right? Also, CKB is just not as popular of a coin as Kadena is. Okay, there's a lot of hype with Kadena, not just as far as the tech goes or the project goes, but because of that big bump we had in 2021 with, you know, KD5s making $100+ a day or whatever. So there's just a lot of hype, and it's just never drawn down. Okay, obviously it's not as popular now because of the price, but the miners still are super popular. As we've seen with the KA3, that the MSRP has essentially doubled because of that. Okay, and this is not the case with Nervos, because even the K7, it being such a big jump, you're still able to buy it and get it on this initial launch. Okay, not much higher than MSRP. The MSRP, I think, was around 4,000 BT miners. Most of the other vendors have it about this price, between 4,600 to 4,800. And it's still available, relatively close to the street price. Okay, so not as much hype here, not as much demand. Hopefully they don't release as many miners, right? Because of that, we'll see what happens when it actually comes out. But let's do some calculations. Okay, so now we know what the current network hash rate is. Let's do some real basic calculations. Let's open up a calculator. So the one thing we do know is, right, the power of the machine. Not the power, but what it's rated at, what it's going to perform at. So we do know that it's going to be at 63.5 terahash. And let's theoretically say we're going to put it at, let's say, 2,000 units. Okay, realistically, that is a fairly small amount. Again, it's all speculation. We don't really know how many they're going to release, but chances are it's going to be significantly higher than this. So again, this is kind of like a best case scenario, but this is what we're going to reference. So we'll do the 63.5. We're going to times it by 2,000. Okay, that's going to give us the amount of terahash. Okay, so now when we plug that number in, this is just a conversion chart from coinguides.org, and this is just to convert essentially terahash to petahash, etc., etc. So we know that 2,000 units are going to make 127,000 terahash. Okay, so we're going to plug that number into there just so we can put it into petahash. Okay, so now we know that 2,000 units, okay, which is not that big of an amount, is going to bring up the hash rate to, it's going to add an additional 127 petahash to the network. Okay, so now let's look back at the chart. It's currently at 61.36 petahash. So currently, as a whole, there's only 61 petahash on the network. Again, only 2,000 units is going to double that amount. Okay? So it's not just going to double the amount, it's essentially going to triple it, because now we're going to add this current amount to that amount. Okay? That's how big of a jump this thing is and how much it's going to really affect that hash rate. Okay, so when we do that, when we add 127 petahash to the existing 60 petahash, we're going to do easy math here. It's going to bring it ballpark to about 180 petahash. Okay, so that's going to 3x the hash rate. Again, with only 2,000 units being shipped. And this is only taking into account the K7. This is not even factoring the N3, which is just now getting shipped. Okay? So what does that mean as far as terms of profitability go? What that means is that now you're going to get a lot less yield. Okay, again, when we do these calculations, we do these projections, we don't want to look at the current fiat value. We want to look at our yield, how much CKB we're actually getting, because that's what matters. Okay, so let's do some more quick calculations. Okay, so we know how much we're going to yield with a K7. Okay, again, we punched it in here. This is what we're concerned with. We're concerned with the amount of yield we're going to get. Okay, this is 14,900 daily. We're going to round this up again. Easy math. We're going to put it up to 15,000. Now, we're going to get a third of that. Okay, if all the existing hash rate stays on the network and we get these 2,000, we're going to be getting a third of that. So now let's plug that into the calculator. Okay, so it's going to be about 5,000, because that's how many CKB at the current price, 0.00227. It's going to be $11.35. Okay, so, and that is our yield. That's not factoring in electricity yet. Okay, so $11.35 minus the $7 for electricity, $7.39. Again, we're just ballparking. It's going to be off $4 profit. Okay, which is a significant difference from the $26 they have listed. Okay, but it's because, again, the hash rate is getting hit so hard. This is a more realistic number. Okay, which I know it's kind of hard to hear, but this is what we're looking at. Okay, and again, this is theoretical. Yes, it's a projection, it's a guess, but again, this is with only 2,000 units. Can there be a lot more? Yes. Is it very likely? Most likely. Okay, but is it also possible that only 1,000 units ship? Yes, but not very likely. I highly doubt it'll be anything less than like 2,000 units. Okay, so that's why I'm saying we're looking at it as this is being the best case scenario. Okay, one other thing to take into account is if 2,000 units do ship, is what's going to happen with the existing hash rate. Okay, so if we plug in the CK6, and this is going to factor in pretty much everything CK6 and below. So essentially eliminating everything but the K7 and the N3. So if all that goes away, right, or if everything stays on the network, okay, so again, if we're going to 3x that, this will be cut down to a third. So now let's look to see if even the CK6 is going to be profitable. Okay, so we're going to do the 4,800. We're going to, again, easy math, we're going to divide it into thirds. So it'll be about 1,600. Okay, we're going to times it by the current price, which is 0.00227. It'll be about $3.63. Okay, not a whole lot, considering the electricity is $3.96 at, this is a farm rate. The reason I put this rate is because this will determine where even like the larger farms, which I don't think they're really messing with altcoin miners, but maybe they do have a few, or the ones that do have it, we're going to see if it's even profitable for them. So if these guys stay, again, everything here and below stay, even at a farm rate, 0.005, which I highly doubt any residential guys are getting this rate, this is more commercial, it's still going to be at a loss. Okay, so this is why I'm factoring in essentially that everything CK6 and below, at least with the current fiat value. Again, this is another big factor. I'm factoring in that the price stays at this range throughout most of this coming year, which is possible. It's also possible that it dumps even more. Okay, but typically this year is typically a sideways year, right? We'll get little dips, we'll get hills and valleys, but overall, I'm not expecting a bullish year at all whatsoever. Maybe sometime the following year after the halving, we'll see some better price appreciation, and then obviously way better after, but we're concerned with right now with this year. Okay, so again, if these guys stay on the network and only 2,000 ship, they're not going to be profitable. So to me, they're not going to be on. So if we take all of the existing hash rate out, that leaves us with about 120 petahash, okay, which is doubling what's currently there. So now what we can do, right, if only 2,000 units ship, we can go back to the calculator, okay, and instead of it being cut to a third, because those guys aren't profitable anymore, it'll get cut down to half, okay, and this is essentially going to be the guys with the K7 and the N3s, okay, so if this gets cut down to half, we can do that math real quick, okay, so it'd be about 7,500 times it again by the current price, 0.00227, and that would bring us to about $17, but we got to minus the $7, so about $10 profitability. Okay, which is possible, not super likely, right? I'm assuming that there will be more than that, right? But again, that's why I'm saying that this is the best case scenario. If only 2,000 units ship, this is what to expect. But realistically, again, I would do it in a third because let's say everything CK6 and below is gone, but they do release more miners, right? Or the N3 becomes more popular and they ship more of those. I would still, at bare minimum, factor that in. Okay, because again, we're looking to project not just what's initially launched, but throughout the year. Because even if they do only launch, let's say a miracle happens and only 800 units are shipped, that doesn't mean it's going to be throughout the whole year, right? They're going to sprinkle them throughout the whole year. Okay, this is just for the initial launch. Okay, so it's most likely going to be worse than even what we're projecting here throughout the period of time. Okay, so factor that in as well. So again, we'll do that 5,000 again times that 0.00227. It's 1135 minus 7, so again about $4 profitability. Okay, so it's anywhere from 4 to 11. Again, this is all theoretical. Could be less, could be more, but these are the things you need to think about. Okay, I just want to get you out of the mindset of just, going on asicminer value. Oh yeah, it's going to make this amount, and you have to take more things into consideration. Again, with like Bitcoin, which is a very mature network, they don't get hit as hard with new releases. It does affect them, but it doesn't affect it as drastically. Okay, essentially Cadena, Nervos, and even Handshake, when that one comes out, their network is going to get reset. It's essentially going to be a new network because it's going to be all new machines that are going to be securing it. Okay, so that's the big thing to take into account, guys. I don't want you to get suckered into seeing these things and then basing your calculation off of that, because that's not what it's going to be with these altcoin miners. Okay, but also, right, a little hopium. Just want to throw in that even though they're not plugged in right now, even though they're not profitable right now, that doesn't mean they won't ever be profitable. Okay, because once the bull market comes, 2025 hits, they can become profitable again. Okay, did this quick little reference, so I went to Wayback Machine in case you haven't used it before. You could essentially reference an old website. It's fun to look at things, what they were back in the day. So just pulled this up. Dated it back to November 6th, which was pretty much the peak. It was the peak month, not necessarily the peak day for day, but give or take the peak month of this last bull market. And we can see that something as outdated as even the S9. Okay, keep in mind that already by this time, the S19 Pros were already out. Okay, so again, those are 110 terahash. So this little guy, being 14 terahash, being 4 years old already, was still profitable. Okay, and this is with Bitcoin that didn't have as significant as a jump compared to what CKB may possibly be able to do. Okay, there's a possibility that if it just even reaches the previous all-time high, that it 15x's. Okay, that's not factoring in that it goes beyond that. Okay, especially now, especially this bull market. Okay, if it's a project that you believe in, that you've been researching, you know that chances are that it's really going to hit its footing this coming bull market. Okay, we'll see what it could actually do. Let's see if it gets any hype behind it, more projects come behind. But just keep that little bit in mind, and that's why, I talked about it in that goals video about doing some more degen plays. This is what I was talking about, and this is one of my degen plays. I did pre-order a K7, and we'll see how it goes, right? In reality, looking at these projections, It's not making a whole lot of sense, but again, we're rolling the dice just based on how many units they release. Okay? Again, this projection's on 2,000. We can get screwed over and they drop, 10,000 of these and profitability is shit. That's also possible. But again, that's not necessarily in their best interest, but it is something that wouldn't be a huge shocker. So just something to consider, right? There's things on both ends of the spectrum, but again, this is all speculation. But this is like what goes on in my mind. The reason I present these things is because these are the projections I'm doing. So a big part of the reason I do these videos is because it's literally what I'm taking into account. These are the numbers I'm looking at. These are the thoughts that are going in my head. Pros and cons. You have to look at worst case scenario and you got to look at best case scenario. And you got to look for that balance in between. Okay? One other thing to take into account if you are still thinking about going with it is that CKB, Nervos, is going to have a halving coming up. Okay? Their halving is in November. So keep in mind that yield we're talking about, that yield come November, even if it stays at this amount, will get cut in half. Okay, so whatever it is, so let's say it goes down to the 7,500 and no other machines get produced, then that's the best case scenario. Come November, it's going to get cut in half. Okay, so you also really have to factor that in. You really have to look at it, especially if that halving does not bring any price appreciation, which is possible. Because at the end of the day, the halving that does cause any positive price action, not necessarily for sure, but that does, is Bitcoin. Okay? In the long run, once Bitcoin has their halving and we get into the bull market, then we can see the effects from it, right? We can have that positive price action, and that's what can cause a bigger bull run in the next market. But for now, you really just have to factor that in, that when this halving in November comes, it might have, and there might not be any price appreciation from it. Okay? And then from there until the next cycle, it's like another year, right? Because the Bitcoin halving will be, like 6-7 months after that. And then the bull market, maybe 5 months after that. So there's still going to be a possibility for trying to run that thing for a year without many profits, if at all, if it's even profitable. May have to just unplug at that point and cross your fingers for the bull run and hope that another big machine doesn't come out. Okay? So again, just want to give you guys that insight, want to give you some things to think about. Okay, if you haven't thought about that before, think about it. Look at different things. But again, it's all speculation. It's hard to really set any precedent with the amount they're going to ship because, again, this is not really their thing. Altcoin miners aren't really their thing. But now it is, right? Again, like we talked about in these other videos, they're trying to kill Gold Shell. They're trying to take them out of business, and this is what's happening. Okay, but what happens with these miners will give us more insight into the future, right? How many they're going to try to be dropping. Things of that sort will have more of a reference. And that's why, again, I've said it before, I'm going to say it again, that this is a degen play. If you're thinking of getting into it, a lot of risk, but possible for a lot of rewards, right? This is why we do it. All right, guys. So again, sorry I got off on a rant. I was trying to make this a shorter video, but ended up going just as long. Sorry about that, guys. But hopefully you did get some value from the video. You learned something, thinking about stuff. Guys, please comment, like, and subscribe. And thank you for watching, guys, and I am out.